Scott Adams has died. Scott Adams has died. I was on listening to his podcast. I went to listen to his podcast the other day. I do it every now and again. And his wife, I'm going to say wife, no, it's his ex-wife. It doesn't matter what word you use. His wife came on. And as I listened to her speak, and she was breaking down and finding it difficult to get through the announcement. And she announced that right before the podcast he died. And we knew he was going to pass away. He knew he was going to pass away. He's had cancer for a while, prostate cancer, I think. And yeah, she found it very difficult to get through. And as I was listening to her, I was feeling a lump in my throat. I've never met Scott Adams. I don't know her, but as I was listening to her, I was feeling her emotion. I was feeling a lump in my throat. And feeling some pain, and he's died, and it's, I think that Scott Adams is to some people, they don't know who he is. To other people, he's the creator of Dilbert. But to me, he is something very, very, very difficult. This is one of the books I read from Scott Adams, how to fail at almost everything and still went big. And one of the main concepts in here, there's a number of different concepts. One of the concepts is about the skill stacking, which I talk about all the time. It's completely from Scott Adams. And I say that, I say it every time? I don't know, but I do say it quite often that this is Scott Adams' concept. But it's an incredible concept. That's why I repeat it over and over and over again. It's so important. I want my children to know, stack your skills, because it's not, there's a synergy there. It's not, if you stack 6 skills on top of each other, that you don't go from 1 to 6. They multiply. So it's like compound interest. They multiply, so you stack the skills, particularly things that you love, and especially now, maybe high demand skills that make sense in the AI age, but stack your skills. This is one of the main, he was the man who told us. I'm pretty sure he's the man who came up with the concept of skill stacking. And it's all in this book. It's in probably a number of his books, but it's all, skill stack is all in this book. How to fail at almost everything and still went big. But he was the one who brought that idea to us. And it's so important. And I want to say as well that Scott Adams had Gaelic blood. He was born in New York and he died in California, I believe. You can fact check me in that case. It's wrong. That's what I believe. But he always said he was half German. And the other half of him was kind of like Irish, English, Welsh, whatever. But I'm going to say Scott Adams had Gaelic blood, and that's where his intelligence and react came from. And he was also incredibly productive, which I guess was his German side. I guess that was his German side. He was working and still doing his podcasts right till the end. Coffee with Scott Adams. It's incredible. And yes, we read another concept in this book as well as affirmations, and I talk about affirmations all the time. But what he says is that if you act, he was saying he can't say that affirmations work, but he was saying if you act like affirmations work, then they work. And he was saying he got over a complete debilitating disease through affirmations. He built an incredible career through affirmations, and not that money is everything, but he died with 50 million. I don't know the exact amount. I think it was about 50 million in the bank, whatever. But he wasn't begging on the streets. He built a successful career, and a huge part of that was affirmations. Now he's going to say that he won't say that affirmations work, but I'm going to say that if you're Gaelic, you have Driocht inside you. If you request from the goddess and expect to receive it, you will receive it, whatever it is. Do you have a sick child? Do you have a a friend who's gone through some terrible medical issues? Do you need more money? Do you need a better career? Do you need to lose weight? Work on that. And what do you need? Because if you affirm it, and on the Looking for Warriors website, we have some rituals that we go through with the Dagda's cauldron and meeting the goddess. But if you're firm and expect it, it happens every single time. And it's happened the moment you affirm and expect it. You may see the event stream might go one way or the other, but it's already happened. And I know, and I know when I request and expect, I know it's already happened. It doesn't really matter what the event stream shows me initially, what a crazy journey I go on. And you get in the top of the slide, you slide down and you might go all over the place, but you know sooner or later you're going to be end up in that pool. You might not know when you're going to end up in the pool, but sooner or later you're going to get to the end of that slide. You're going to end up in the pool. And he has, and you should check it out. I think he has his people. I don't know if you call it people, maybe it's family or something, but the people who were on his podcast afterwards, I don't know who they are setting up Scott Adams School, which is he did these great little mini lessons, which I suggest that you check out. They're probably on his YouTube, probably on his locals. Incredible mini lessons. So, Scott Adams, he's dead, he died, but his soul is still in here and his other books. And he's probably the most videoed person in the world. So I guess you can still maybe talk to AI and say, act like you're Scott Adams and answer the question if you want to. Or check out his mini lessons. The mini lessons are incredible. So, and he has Gaelic blood, Scott Adams. That's where his triact came from, and he had such triact. And he had German blood as well, which is where all his productivity came from. In this book, How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big, he talks about his the really difficult things he went through, the failures he went through, and he was couldn't progress in his corporate career because of his ethnicity, or when he couldn't draw it anymore, and the incredible difficult failures he went through, and how he came through the other side and also became incredibly successful afterwards. And this helps us, we've all had our difficult times. We've all had our difficult times. And I, right now, as I'm speaking, I'm deciding, will I tell you about my difficult times? But I've read this book and I've gone through business failures. I've gone through difficult days. I think we all have. But this tells us how to push through those difficult times, and get to the success. At the end, in Think and Grow Rich, they talk about the man who's mining for diamonds and he gives up when he's only a meter away from the diamonds. He's been mining and mining, and he gives up when he's only a meter away. And this book really tells us the same thing, that we are going to hit walls, we are going to get knocked down. Life is going to knock you down. The Fomorians are going to try to take the legs out from under you. This book tells us you're Gaelic and you get knocked down, but you stand back up again and keep moving forward through the winds, through the rain, through the pain. Keep pushing forward. This is what the Triskel also tells us, but this is all in Scott Adams' book. I would suggest, if you're interested, get this book or download an Audible. Very interesting book. I'll probably listen to it again. I've read it a couple of times. I've all markings in this book, right throughout it, but let's see all the markings all over this book. But a lot of these books are books that you can read over and over and over again. You can get more and more out of it. Scott Adams was incredibly generous with his time, with his money. He invested in things like locals when they needed it. his time and his money, and right up and his productive mindset, right up to the very, very, very end. Right up to the very, very end. He had more money than he could ever spend, which he wasn't. He died before he could spend it. But even though he had more money than he could spend, he believed that giving back, giving back was the real value. And he did that right up to the very, very, very end until he couldn't stand anymore. He was on his podcast every single day, and then his wife and some other people came on when he just couldn't handle it anymore. But he was so incredibly generous, and he taught us about influence. He taught us affirmations, the interface. I think he calls the interface for reality, but he also taught us about expecting good outcomes and how important that was. Affirmations. And he was so generous as far as sharing his all these mini lessons, and they're all so valuable. And he was so generous. He really believed in giving back, and what he could really give back more than money, which he had more money than he could ever spend. But what he could really give back was his knowledge, and he did that in spades. It's all you can check his YouTube channel. It's all over the place. But he talked about influence, and he was a trained hypnotist, but he was very, very, very skilled with influence. And again, check out his many lessons. I think Scott Adams College or Scott Adams School, something like that. But check out his many lessons on Locals and YouTube. But I just want to say, bye, Scott. Scott, you don't know me. Well, you've retweeted me once or twice, so maybe you know I exist, but we never met. And bye, and thank you for everything you've left um, in this world. And I think your legacy will be Scott Adams School. I think it's called Scott Adams School. But also, I hope Looking for Warriors will be a tribute to you and what you've done. And I hope that we can reimagine and reteach your incredible lessons that you put out in the world. And obviously, it's gonna be more of a Gaelic twist on it, but I hope that we Look for Warriors will be a legacy of what you put out in the world, and hopefully it will be some of your incredible lessons with my twist that will that we can put out again in the world. And again, Scott, thank you for your work, your work ethic, your intelligence, your wit, and the dent you put, the personal Scott Adams dent that you put on the universe and you put on all of our hearts. Thank you. Éireann go bra, agus tá ar lá an seo.